everybody, welcome to the Daniele Hage podcast. I'm your host, Daniele, and I have a very special guest today. I'm out in LA with Naftali Moses, and the way that I found this young man is he popped up on my Instagram or something, and you just caught my attention because you're so well spoken, number one, and the things that you were saying is exactly the stuff that I talk about on my podcast and on social media. And then I found out that you were 24 years old. And I was like just shaking my head going, what? This kid, he knows too much for being 24 years old. And so I thought, I got to reach out to him. And you responded, yay. So I'm really excited. Really excited.
I'm just as excited as you are.
Oh, well, so what caught my attention is you did I guess it's a podcast. Mm-hmm. You were teaching about, I think the title was The Weakening of Men and Women, and then your take on masculinity and femininity. My husband, I had my husband listen to it too, and I'm like, listen to this kid. He so knows his stuff, and you have such a good understanding. So I want to start right there. Tell me and I loved how you brought in the fairy tales, the Disney stories about Beauty and the Beast and Sleeping Beauty. I used the Princess and the Frog for a lot of stuff that I talk about.
All my references from Disney.
Yes, yeah. And I love that. So give me your take about what is masculinity to begin with, and then tell me what femininity is for you.
Those are big questions,
Yeah.
And she started off big. I think when understanding this, I think you have to have an understanding of things that are much bigger than you, because we are embodying those things. At the end of the day, if we don't have an understanding of an ideal and what we are striving towards, and I think for men it's fatherhood, and for women it's motherhood. And I think that those archetypes itself as father and mother is represented in the masculine and the feminine. Yeah. People put like constraints on those terms, when really those terms are exactly what we are struggling to be like, and it's not an easy thing to access this. You would have to have an elevated understanding, which is why that brings in the conversation of something beyond ourselves, mm-hmm. right? So immediately right now, where it's just funny, I was watching this on the way here, it was like the thumbnail was alpha male telling this guy to put him in his place, right? And I was like, let me watch this. And it's like pretty much a Muppet of a guy, it's hardly a person. But that's the definition of masculinity nowadays. But anybody who's actually felt it or experienced it understands that it's definitely not that. And it's a cons game by which there's like this presentation of masculine. So I guess that's what made me curious about this. Like, why is this such a difficult question for so many people? And I definitely believe it's because there's a rejection of the ideals that are in representation of something so much bigger than ourselves. If you eliminate your relationship with that, what you do is you're pretty much left to your ego and your own personal value, which is going to be dictated by your traumas, your insecurities, and the fears that you experience. So pretty much you'll never have any relationship with any ideal because you're not even aware that there's something beyond yourself that you're connected to. And so as men, and authenticity being in representation of the divine image, being what we are here to be, that's an existential belief for you. What really has grasped me to that understanding is realizing that this is who I am, this is what I have to connect to, and it's a deep, deep challenge. And masculinity and responsibility, they're deep, deep lovers.
They go hand in hand.
And they go hand in hand because there is something about it. Bearing the weight of the world means the world was made for you. And men that walk with that belief are very, very strong, very powerful, and have everything that there is to give to the woman who's going to be expanding that space by which the man has created a structure for. He can hold it, right? And if he can hold it, well then, maybe it's going to get light over time, but that's exactly where the feminine comes in. Infinite contribution, creation. And we work in harmony with each other. So.
Yeah. Well, and I loved how you said the masculine and feminine go together. That's how we're designed. We were designed to fit together perfectly. But it seems like in our culture today, they're saying, masculinity is toxic, femininity is silly and stupid and irresponsible, and it's looked down upon not by the men, by women. The feminists, I believe, have taught women over the last 50 years that you can do everything a man can do. You don't just have children.
They poison people.
They have poison, and people have drank the Kool-Aid.
They feed into the insecurities. They feed into the insecurities that, if go unconfronted, ruin your life and destroy the lives of others. You become a culprit for destruction. And that's the whole thing about the feminist narratives, that most people don't even know where to originate from.
Yeah.
It is one created by men, and I'll tell you, Karl Marx was the one that really pushed that.
Really?
And
okay.
The origination of it was initially to break the family unit, because men are very, very strong when they're together. We're very weak when we're alone. And this whole idea of masculinity exists on its own is pornographic, because it's most people's relationship with men and women is probably through a screen and watching it in the most one-dimensional way possible, either through film, right, which most film sucks. So, I mean, continue what you're saying. I found there's a much bigger conversation behind that, because, you know, I even when people attack feminism, because, you know, like I've worked with people who are like hardcore feminists, went through the whole college system, have been indoctrinated, done the whole 9 yards, by which they think they're educated and qualified and ready to get a high value man, when they get completely the exact opposite, and they're not satisfied. Then there's panic, fear, and then perhaps maybe all of the things that they didn't confront. And then they have to remove all of their value that they adopted through that belief called feminism. And all that has done is eradicated them from the one thing that they're trying to come closer to now in their 30s, which is the feminine aspect of who they are, because that is who you are. You can't live without.
Right. Well, and I think it's so sad, because it's like you hear people and women all the time saying, I don't need a man. I don't need a man to buy me a meal. I don't need to be dependent on a man. I will never submit to a man. And I just think there's...
All of those things are conditioned. That's conditioning. That's not a byproduct of actual women. That is conditioning. And by the way, and if you're a feminist, you're going to love this, that men taught you.
Men taught women that?
Yes, men taught women that. It's like the whole thing where I think a lot of women don't like this. Feminism was not made by women. It was made by men.
I didn't know that.
And it was made by men to get women to do what they wanted them to do. Now, of course, you can take the level of evil and corruption that these people have behind them, and then you would have a much better idea. But good men and bad men. Bad men like to feed into an idea that women can have an additional security outside of submission to one man. And they
Wait, say that again? So bad men
like to feed into an initial insecurity that women have around needing security, that they don't need to submit to men, that they can do it themselves. Sound familiar? The story has been as old as time itself.
Yes.
Adam and Eve in the garden, right?
Yes, talk to us about that. I loved your take on that Adam was designed to be the protector, taking care of the garden, taking care of Eve. He was given a woman, a helpmate, his ally, a teammate, and then he doesn't quite do his job, and she gets alone with the serpent, or the serpent gets her alone.
There's the thing that's very interesting. I think you're going to love this.
Okay.
I don't believe that Eve and the serpent are separate entities. I believe it's the aspect of the woman that creates the eternal destruction as we know it. The feminine itself is a manifestation of infinite creation and life itself, and also infinite destruction and the death of life. So when understanding the feminine, people look at it separate from the snake. Now, the snake isn't this empty entity. Well, it's always around women, because there's no notion of Adam being around the snake.
Right.
There's only a notion of Eve and the snake, that she's susceptible to that, and it's actually something that she's connected to. And then when you look at it that way, and you're like, well, what is the snake a representation of? It's going to be the representation of bad narratives, an incorporation of new things in life that we don't quite understand, that you are supposed to make order with your husband. So the separation of them is clearly where you could see the downfall is, right? And perhaps even if you take the whole story, it's a very, very deep symbolic story that could help people really understand this. Because, you know, it's like, if you want to know why I understand this so well, I've read the stories that involve duality. The story of creation, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, boom, 2, right? Light and darkness, 2. And then you have land and heavens, 2, right? And then you have masculine and feminine, 2. That's actually such a crazy idea now. People are like, duality, tell me about this. You're like a hippie, you know? And it's like, well, it's in everything. It's in us. It's in nature. You see it all around us. So when looking at the Adam and Eve story, and especially looking at Eve in relationship to the snake tells her the one thing, that every woman will believe if they aren't told the truth by their husband. Adam didn't tell her the truth. God told Adam the truth. Adam put an additional protection on her, and that's where men up.
Wow.
Where they go to there's protection, which is God's word, and then there's control, which is your fear. What made her eat from the apple? Fear. What made him say, don't eat from it and don't touch it? Fear. So now she was already left into her own vices, because he said, you know, he provided something beyond her own understanding that even Adam could offer. That you could
the serpent.
That you could be like God yourself.
That's what I was just going to say.
Right?
That there's something you're missing. There's something God didn't tell you everything. There's something you're lacking.
And she was
just
susceptible.
Eat the fruit, and then you can be like God. Yeah.
Yes, and that's the whole thing that really is difficult for women to understand about themselves. If left to your own vices, you will destroy your life.
So do you believe that women need men?
In every damn way possible.
I love that.
in every
I agree.
damn way possible. Because
Yeah.
if women were left to their own vices, I'll just let them speak for themselves. Are you happy
Yeah.
when you are left to your
Yeah.
own vices? Do you feel safe when men don't challenge
Right.
you? Do you feel safe when men hold the truth from you and present fake
No.
intentions? Do you feel safe when they add additional things onto the thing that actually was there to protect you?
Right, right.
And so,
No.
of course, we do this together. And I feel heartbroken, to be
Yeah.
honest with you. I feel heartbroken by how many people are sold on a lie and conditioned
Yes.
to be a product of that lie. And of course, this comes down to the one thing is that men need to be warriors. They need to fight back these narratives. You know?
Right.
I don't think that war is going to solve anything at this point in history, especially where we're at. But it's going to look like that. But it's not going to look like it's ever looked like before.
Yeah.
It's going to take people that understand their values, that understand themselves, and are willing to speak up against these things. And if need be, fight back.
Yeah.
If need be. Because we don't know what that's going to be for us.
Okay, I'm going to switch gears just a little bit because I heard you talk about this, about vulnerability with men, and I believe that vulnerability takes courage and bravery. And I had made a post a while back about making yourself vulnerable, and oh my gosh, the pushback I got from the men, and most of my following is men. I have way more men than I have women.
So interesting. Most people go on my page and it's always women that need accountability.
Really?
They always say this. They say this. I think they like this. I love how you're helping men. I'm like, oh, nice. Separate yourself. No, you need it more than they do.
Well, and my message is for women to help them understand men, but the women push back on me, I think it's because it's almost like they think I'm betraying the sisterhood because I'm applauding and promoting men and saying we need men.
They think you're a pick-me.
Men are wonderful, and they're like, because a lot of them have taken that feminist mindset that we don't need men.
Well, it's so easy to adopt a feminist mindset when your dad is a piece of shit.
Right.
And when
right.
every other guy in your life has hurt you.
Yes, and you've been hurt.
Are you telling me that's the best pill that you can take to get power instantly?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
See, there's where the snake is susceptible when you're weak, when you're alone, when you're left to your own vices. That's where the snake is.
Well, so on this particular post, the men were saying, don't listen to her. This is bad advice. Don't ever be vulnerable. Women will use it against you. Women will think you're weak. And I just thought, it made me so sad. There were so many. And I know those men are wounded. They were wounded by their woman.
Help them contextualize it. I would help them contextualize it.
Like how? What do you mean?
Women are a manifestation of all of the emotions that you repress internally. Women
are a manifestation.
Is going to be the manifestation of all of the emotions that you repress internally.
That a woman represses or men?
A man.
The man, okay.
So the vulnerability aspect is deeply courageous, and men need to understand the difference between weakness and vulnerability.
Yes.
Because if they don't understand it and they don't challenge the difference between weakness and vulnerability, you're just saying a bunch of psychological jargon that sounds romantic.
Right.
They need to know the difference between weakness and vulnerability. Because, it's very vulnerable to start a confrontation by just saying, hey, when you hug that other guy, it made me feel jealous. That's vulnerable. Right.
Yes.
But what's not vulnerable is, interesting, who's that guy? He seems cool. Yeah, stick a thumb in your eye, right? Why don't you? So I found it very interesting how a lot of men's relationship with their emotion is going to be their relationship with the women in front of them. Because if you really want to evolve, and there's almost like, by the way, when you're single and when you meet somebody, there's a switch by which you become one flesh. The vulnerability is making that decision before you find the person. Something about that is a representation of faith and courage, and you need to be connected to that decision because it leaves you very vulnerable, right? But it's also true, it's honest about you.
Yes.
What's going to make a man weak is that he runs from himself.
Yes.
And the truth about his vulnerabilities, right? And so, primarily in even Middle Eastern cultures and people who are raised with even my family, Moroccan, people from Iran, Iraq, Persia, they typically have a relationship with emotions, which is they're weak. Weakness only looks good on women because we like to save them. So you create another complex through that, but that's a whole different conversation.
Right.
But getting men to understand this, that your relationship with women is only as good as your relationship with your emotions.
Yeah, I'd so agree
because
with you.
if you want a woman to smile all the time, don't tell her to. Allow her to experience all of what she is.
All of her feelings,
and then you will have a beautiful woman because you will realize that tears are a beautiful thing. Yeah. And that the most disgusting thing in the world is a fake smile and somebody who wants control in every aspect of the relationship. Yeah. And there are so many women that know how to do that. So they create a manipulation of what they are. So you already feel shame as a woman. And then you also create a dishonest relationship with men. And then if they believe it, you don't feel safe.
Oh, wow.
runs deep.
Yes.
Yeah, so
okay, you are so philosophical. You're 24. How did you learn all of this? Because I saw you said something like, I never even picked up a book until I was 21. That's 3 years ago. What do you mean? You really didn't read anything?
I hated reading books. I would see my brother read Kurt Vonnegut, and I'd be like, you know? I loved conversation, and I loved debate. If there was something that I could push, my whole life was arguing religious doctrine.
Really?
And the legitimacy of it. There was one thing I was not willing to give up, and it was my desire for sex. You bring that into a church, a temple, a synagogue, a Jewish day school, you are going to be challenged.
Ooh, yeah,
That was like my childhood. I'm the youngest of 7 brothers, so you get challenged all the time. So I looked for it. And it was really a search of truth. I was not willing to give up the things that I knew to be the things that allow me to enjoy life the way that I do. I have to say that that's definitely a gift from God. You know, rebellious nature is a gift from God.
Yeah.
And I was grateful to God that I had.
Wow.
All my brothers were like, you're such a rebel. Who do they call now, right? So I was willing to around and find out. And I think the rebel is the one that could bring peace. You know, the successful revolutionary brings peace.
Okay.
And the philosophy for me was always reading the biblical stories. The biblical stories were something I didn't find attachment to. I read them, let them hit me how they hit me. I took it out in the world, I played around. And then I went, oh, I've seen that story before. Where have I seen it? Oh, that's the Joseph story. Right? So, the story of the leader archetype, Moses, right? Both born from 2 worlds, you know, drawn from the Nile, has 2 mothers.
Yes.
So you gotta have a lot of feminine in order to be the ultra masculine leader, right? So the stories itself, and also, you know, growing up, something clicked. I came out of a relationship and I just realized that there's so much more that the world has to offer. And if I don't give myself a try, I'll be a very lonely person and I will never be able to see what I'm made of.
So are you looking for a relationship?
Yeah.
Now you are actively looking?
Actively looking.
Okay.
Looking in the sense of becoming. I believe that, you know, there's 2 ways to look. You can do things, do, or you can become. And I ultimately think that I've done so much of that doing. And I feel when you are becoming, you're at the right place at the right time with the right people. I don't feel any scarcity, like I need to be in this group because there's more girls in that environment. Or that's how I used to feel. That's why I suffered tremendously.
Wow.
I had textbook mommy issues. Textbook.
Really?
Classic Don Juan. Classic. Every girl that was attractive enough to me was my mother until the projection broke. And actually, this is the thing about mommy issues that destroyed my life, is that my mother was the devil, right? And every other woman that I was attracted to was an angel. So it made me awful with women because I couldn't listen to them. My projections were too dense. And then when the projection would break, I'm like, oh my God, get rid of her.
Wait,
right?
What do you mean? Okay, wait. You say you had great parents. What do you mean mommy issues? Why do you say she was the devil? What do you mean?
Well, I mean, that's exactly what it would feel like, right? Having great parents doesn't mean that your parents aren't human. You know,
Right.
you still suffer the classic neuroses. My parents gave me all the tools necessary to not make excuses. That's what good parents are, right?
That's good.
But they're still your humanity. You
Yeah.
know, my mother has even talked to me about this today. She was telling me how, you know, she was aware that her mother's mother passed away, and that had a serious effect on her mother that made her this like taskmaster of sorts. And then I grew up with a taskmaster, right?
Okay.
But also I became very familiar with feminine dark nature. But growing up, you know, you're like, I need a woman, right? Like, what the is? That's the most Jewish thing that you could say too, by the way. And I mean, that's the whole thing. Freud's mother was Jewish. You know, that's where the whole Oedipus mother comes from, the overbearing mother, the devouring mother.
Oh.
Yeah. Also, I love psychology, so that probably answers a lot of questions too.
Okay, let me ask you some personal questions.
Oh, please.
If that's okay? Okay. Describe the perfect woman for you.
Oh,
she look like? What is she? Who is she?
Oh, goddamn. I really think I'm gonna just write down. I'm gonna say the thing that I believe to have the most open ends. It's a woman that has an inclination towards righteousness, and a woman that understands faithfulness. A woman that is connected to her internal beauty, along with her external beauty. I believe that those things are deeply connected. Okay. Now, when a woman is connected to her values through her femininity, she has superior influence. And that's what I need. I need superior influence. I need to be inspired towards my best vices, towards my highest purpose.
Okay, do you date online, or you want to meet her organically, or what?
I'll meet her organically.
You will? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And because
Any future prospects right now?
No.
Okay.
I used to be always have a girl, right? Until I realized that made me weak in my dating.
Oh.
Because then I could never really make it clear what I wanted, number one. And number two, I was only good when I had options. So I was fake.
Oh.
Now I'm very, very real.
Okay.
Even because I'm walking away on my path again. I'm not going to
Yeah.
another girl's arms. And I think that's very important for men to understand. And that was a big shift in my life that allowed me to feel open to it. Now, at this point in my life, open feels a little bit cliche of a word. I would say that I don't need to ask if I'm ready. I feel it.
Okay.
I feel it.
Okay.
So when the time is right, without any rush, without any expectations or pressure behind it, I'll do the right thing.
Yeah.
And I think that I'm open. I'm
Yeah.
open. I'm open to whatever it is. Maybe it's more time. Maybe it's here. Maybe it's around the corner as I go downstairs. But I used to have this terrible mindset around, I turn this corner, there she is. Or, oh, is this her?
Yeah.
You know how painful that is? That
Is
means
it?
every time you have an interaction with somebody, they either are your wife or you're not. So you see how like the mommy issues carried on from, and then it carried on into something called like, are you my woman? Are you my wife? Are you the one? Right? That's the same thing. That means you probably have a relationship with the feminine that you don't accept. And that's something I've been really doing now, which is just accepting the dark nature of the feminine. It's
What
I
is
work
the
in.
dark nature of the feminine?
Oh, terribly chaotic.
Chaotic?
Destructive,
Controlling.
overbearing, critical, harsh, manipulative, would present the most beautiful thing possible, like a cloak and dagger. That's the scariest thing to men, right? And then, of course, it's a whole different conversation, but I definitely think that going back to the initial question that you asked me, it's like what I'm looking for in a woman is clearly a woman that has a connection to those divine values. Through
Does
her
she need to be
femininity.
Jewish?
She'll end up Jewish.
Ooh, you'll convert her?
I don't know if that really matters.
Okay.
Partially because I think the Orthodox conversion is something you could pay for, and I would like to show them that they're full of Venmo them 30 grand, and they're like, she's Jewish now. And you're like, well, wait, because that's a great question. What makes somebody Jewish? Is it their observance of the law or their genealogy? I think that your genealogy gives you an easy access to something that's foundationally you, but to say that it's not the practice is exactly how you to say I'm a gym goer, but I never hit the gym.
Right.
It doesn't work
Right.
under any other rule
Absolutely.
possible except under the framework of ideologies that need to be challenged by people that actually think.
Okay, so what's great about
I want to
being-
raise my children Jewish.
You do? Okay.
Yes.
So yeah, you have to find someone that is in agreement.
And I would
You're
love
in
that
unity.
she's Jewish. Let's skip the whole communal outcast part. But I mean, at this point, if you're going to be an individual, you could say goodbye to your community.
Oh, okay.
You have to build it.
So you don't marry outside of your community in the Jewish
Oh, no.
faith.
As long as, here's the thing about the Jewish community. I could marry a girl that for some lineage, oh my God, wow, she has a Jewish mother, but she hates God, she hates herself. And every single person in the community would be applauding. And I think that's an abandonment of values. I think
Yeah.
that's an ego. That's the ego right there. That is the abandonment of what we need to be. I don't think that there's Jewish or Christian or Muslim or Buddhist. I think there's the truth. And I think the more that people begin to identify with the sect of religion that they are, the more separate they become from the thing that they want.
Yeah.
And that's
Okay.
something
That's good.
I acknowledge, and even I accept with humility, even as a Jew, that this is something I connect to because this is who I am. This is what I was raised as. And I don't think that the truth is inaccessible to anybody, any culture,
Right.
anywhere.
Right. True. Okay, so what's great about being a man?
What's great about being a man? Well, wonderful. I think that it is the most true thing that I can be as a man.
Okay.
I feel it, but I don't question it. I know that's what the energy is, and I know that that energy is there to build and create. And I think that the best part about being a man is that you can play and that you can create things beyond your own beliefs. That right there is just such a beautiful aspect of ourselves. It comes with
Okay.
authority, it comes with power, it comes with significance, it comes with recognition. But all of those things are necessary for influence, inspiring others, and building things beyond what we believed was possible. And so it's a creative process.
Yeah.
Being a man is a deeply creative experience. And just like it is to be a woman, it's just we manifest this as masculine and as feminine. And if you understand the terminology, you don't really see one as better than the other. That's an
Right.
obtuse idea.
Sure.
But there is a leading force and there is a passive force.
Right.
And I think that there is a dominant and there is a submissive.
Right.
And for anybody that really wants to get to understand this, for any woman, it's to understand that submission is deeply vulnerable and so is
Very.
dominance.
How so?
Dominance is typically associated linguistically to being something of power,
Yeah.
authority, exists on its own, right? That's not true. Being a very dominant man has backlashes. Because if I meet a very agreeable woman and I tell her what I want and she goes, yes, babe, blink, 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 and it's full of shit, I'll lose my balls. At midnight.
How will you know if it's not real, though? If
That's-
she's
that's-
saying yes, how will you know?
There it goes, vulnerability right there. How would you know? You would have to trust them, wouldn't
Yeah.
you, right? And
Got to
so
get to know him.
You got to get to know them. And so that's the whole thing. It's like, okay, I could present dominance. Here's my castle, and I want you now. It sounds kind of cool and hip. Yet she could just say yes because she wants to be inside the castle. So now who's more vulnerable, me or her?
I would think she'd be vulnerable.
Well,
You're more
she's
vulnerable?
within the confines of my heart.
Oh, that's vulnerable for her.
That's vulnerable for men too. What I'm trying to say, to be submissive as a woman
Yes.
is as vulnerable as being dominant as a man. Because right now, being a dominant male in today's society, you are categorized as a misogynistic, emotionalist, chauvinist who goes out of their way to control women.
Yeah.
I was kicked out of a coffee shop for politely flirting with a girl who was flirting with me that worked there. The employees immediately projected that I am the spawn of Satan. No.
Why? Why?
Well, because I represent masculinity. Have you been to Starbucks recently?
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
Maybe.
there's
I
a
don't
theme in Starbucks.
What is it?
Masculinity is really hard to find there.
Really?
Yep, go
I
ahead,
didn't
check
know
it out. Even the men don't have And I mean, this is a whole different conversation,
Wow.
but not to steer into the political direction, but everything about those institutions and establishments
Wow.
attract weak people, and they become an instrument for evil unconsciously.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do you find irresistible about women?
What? Well, oh my God, please. What I find irresistible about women? Oh, their sexual nature. Irresistible.
Okay.
Absolutely irresistible. I think that when a woman is connected to her sexuality, it's one of those things that is irresistible and simultaneously like the downfall of yourself. It wouldn't be irresistible if it didn't cost you everything. And I think that there's a particular kind of expression, sexually speaking, that is, you can't, it's what makes men go, 1 second, let me go build the sculpture of David. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's beyond even our own understanding of it. And I think that there's a particular aspect of feminine strength and softness and sensitivity that, to me, blows my mind. It is something to me that really makes you question what we are taught as strong is. Because you could take the strongest of walls, a soft, sensitive woman, you can't do there's nothing you can do. And so then we often, that's the thing about like the immaturity we have in our society today, is that like we often look at soft and sensitive as weak, and we look at dominant and bold as strong. But if you're dominant and bold to protect things that are actually honest, then you're weak. And if you're utilizing soft and sensitive to avoid the parts of you that are bold and honest, well, then that's also weak too.
Right.
So what makes something weak is that it's void of the authenticity that backs it. It's void of truth.
Yeah,
That's what makes something
that's
weak.
good. That's
and
a
so
good point.
True softness is powerful. True sensitivity
Yes.
is powerful. True
Yes.
sadness is powerful. These are all in the image of something so much beyond ourselves.
Yeah, that's really good. Okay, what does husband mean to you?
Husband mean to me? Well, it's a great one. It means grow up, realize that she's not that porn projection you made her to be. She's probably going to turn you off a few times because she's human. And I think that's also the deep struggle that I have in relationship to sex. You can see an aspect of woman that is so beyond your even like, okay, that's the best thing in the world. And it's not just about sex itself, but it's about the expression of an aspect of an individual through that space. And also dresses. I love dresses. You can't see them anymore. Everybody has like,
Dresses.
dresses
On women. Yeah.
Dresses on women.
Yeah. So what does the father mean to you?
Well, husband, yeah. I mean, being a husband is very, very deep archetype. But I think father is composed of husband. I think if I embody what it is to be a father, then of course I'm a husband.
Right.
Because the most powerful thing you could show your kids is really, hey, she's first. She's mine. And I take care of her. And men and women, and as if you have daughters and sons and they see that relationship, you are giving them the ability to find that themselves. And that is the greatest gift you can give your children, a healthy relationship.
Yes, absolutely.
And so being able to see what that looks like, where it's not just constant fights and degradation, which is most people's households. They see a wife screaming at a guy, emasculating him, or a man breaking a woman, right? Deteriorating her. And so being a father is being able to understand exactly how in relationship you treat a woman that would be your wife. So that comes definitely going to come first in relationship to husband. And then after that is going to be an embodiment of the values and how you constructively create them in this world. And so what really helps people, anybody, especially boys, is seeing things. They need to see them. Like, because for men, when I look at my father or my father figure, it's the representation of the values that I need to instill in myself. And you leave room for play, you leave room for authenticity. You don't want to be your dad, but you want to understand the values that your dad stood up for. And how do you know that those values are good? Does he walk with a limp? Or does he walk with his shoulders back, right? Does he walk with grace?
Yeah.
Those are his values. People's values, most people's values aren't values. They're just there just so that they can have conversation with people so that they don't get challenged by them. But this is very true about women too. You look up to a good father figure, you are going to be far more likely to be with good men than if you don't. It's just simple psychology.
Right.
And then you look at him, but you're also looking at the values that you are going to instill in your sons and what you are looking for in a partner.
Okay.
Because it goes both ways. Now what's the father going to be? A representation of the values that the kids need to see. They need to see it externally, which is why typically men are more external. Even our appendages are external. The way we present ourselves is external.
Right.
And the feminine is internal within the confines of the home, And I think that when we begin to understand that, we grow things on both sides. One on the outside, one on the inside. When a man is familiar with the internal feminine space, he creates security for a woman. He doesn't become one. And men need to know that.
Okay, wait, say that again. Say it one more time.
This is playground for me. And this is something I've noticed very, very recently in my life, is that internal space of emotions, when you become one flesh as men and women, which is, I hate that society goes out of its way to separate men and women from each other.
Yes.
In the name of individuality. Do you understand the corruption of that? Individuality doesn't exist without the feminine or the masculine. That's the corruption itself. And that's what keeps people weak and keeps women really helpless and men lost and weak. So it's a whole different conversation. But anyways, what I noticed is that when men have a relationship with this internal space, they'll be able to identify that in a woman. And a woman needs to have the same thing. This is kind of like the yin-yang situation, by which the masculine is composed of the feminine. That's full masculine. The feminine is composed of the masculine. That's full feminine. Because if you take that away, she's completely and totally chaos without any integration or humanity. And the same thing goes for the man. If you want to know a person who has like autism, there's like a spectrum, right? That a man without any feminine integration at all becomes autistic, unrelatable, unempathetic, becomes very hard to socialize. And by the way, to make women feel safe is typically one of the biggest drawbacks, because now you can't even create a space by which you can reproduce, but that's more of like the psychological mumbo jumbo at that point.
Yeah, mumbo jumbo. Okay, so because you mentioned sex, and I think I heard you say something on one of your podcasts, and it shocked me, but let's just go there, because I disagree.
Okay, please, yes.
So you were talking with somebody, I know somebody must have been interviewing you, and you said, I don't know if she said, is sex on the first date okay? And you go, yeah, sure, why not?
Yeah.
And that shocked me. Like, why? So you date a girl, first date, hardly know her, and she's willing to go to bed with you, and you think that's cool?
Yeah, 1 second. I'll let you know how this works.
Did I get it wrong?
Not only do I think it's cool, I think it's honest. You have to meet yourself where you're at. I'm sorry to break this to most people in this world, most boys you walk on the street are sexually traumatized. You don't think that kids are sexually traumatized by seeing tits at 6 years old?
Probably.
You don't think that girls are sexually traumatized by looking at Instagram and having to compare themselves to every girl when they're flat-chested?
Right.
Yeah. It's going to create an overdeveloped sexual psyche. The goal isn't to repress it and sell your kids on a lie. Like, poof, thank God I made it. Because you want to know what my salvation was for a long time? Marriage. Doesn't mean that I don't want to be married, but my salvation was marriage, so I didn't have to confront my dark nature behind sex.
So get married so that you
can integrate it. That's the correct answer. Get married so you can integrate it without ruining your life, because you're not a psychologist or somebody with a good family like 99% of the world. Right?
Yeah.
So accept that about yourself. But what's really important for people to understand is their own sexual nature. A lot of men create these complexes in their head now, by which the woman that you can have crazy sex with is not the woman you marry.
Oh, yeah.
That makes men more likely to cheat and women more likely to cheat, because they're not satisfied because the man is not bringing the animal and the woman is hiding it. Right? So they're the same wound. How do you fix that? And when I said you can, you would just need to be willing to own up that that's who you are. And if you can, well, then that's an opportunity for connection. And that's the number one rule for connection. You feel something with somebody, move forward, go through with it. And that's how you create connection. If you pull it back, well, now there's a disconnect, right? There's a wall.
But men typically, generally speaking, don't bond through sex, okay? And it has everything to do with hormones. Women do, okay? Generally speaking, because oxytocin gets released, that's the bonding hormone, and it lasts in women for like 3 weeks. It lasts in a man for like 3 days. So he's over it. He has sex with her. I've heard more men say, I was super attracted to her, and so yeah, we went out, and she slept with me, and the next morning I was like, okay,
Can I pause you right there?
Okay, go.
That right there is called men dealing with their shattered projection of women that they didn't respect. Men who don't respect the woman that they were with and then had sex with her, see the woman as she is. Here's the thing about male sexual impulse, if not integrated. It makes every woman you're attracted to the object of your desire in your life. If you are not aware of that and you don't integrate it, that means you will never be with women. You'll be with what you make them, and you'll play this very horrible game, by the way, by which you sleep with them and go, oh, sleep with them, oh, until you go, is there something wrong with me? Oh, right? So that's not a pretty process that men do that. They should probably take themselves with more consideration and severity, which is why I'm saying the whole first date thing was that people understand you can, and if that's what you honestly feel, and a lot of women nowadays feel that way, but hide it, and so do men. We live in a promiscuous society.
Yeah, we do.
So why are you performing?
Well, see, I tell women, do not sleep with men that you're really into, really attracted to. You feel like he's a great guy.
Oh, you're going to punish him if you do that, because you need to measure the woman. You got to see what she's made of and what her history looks like.
But men love a challenge. And
yes, but don't challenge him that way. What challenges men is being able to see beauty that they don't feel deserving of. That deeply challenges men. To give them conditions and to utilize your sex as a weapon to get him to chase is just going to make him tell you what you want to hear.
I don't think it's a weapon for women. I think it's a sacred gift that you don't want to just give away, because for a woman, she'll suffer if he doesn't call her back the next day. And see, and that's what we hear all the time is that, well, because for a woman, if I gave him part of my body, that means we're connected, and then he doesn't have anything to do with her, and she's hurt. She's devastated.
What I'm trying to say is that that's kind of in a bubble right there, right? Because there's a whole lot that happens prior to people getting naked and taking their clothes off. And if you want to start meeting high-value people, ask if they want to start having children soon and getting married soon.
And that means?
You're going to be aware of somebody's values, right? And now here's the thing about most people. They repress their sexual nature because it's hard to accept. It's hard for people to conceptualize that a person would marry the woman they ate out in a bathroom on the first date. Hear me out here.
Okay.
Why does that challenge people? Isn't that a challenge itself? And here's the thing is that, of course, a lot of men like the chase because they're so familiar of chasing. If you want me to be honest, men shouldn't chase. They should never chase. And in fact, women should understand this about them. Put effort into the men that you want, just not any more than they don't respect. If they respect the effort you put in, you have a guy that's inviting you. And this is across the board. Women don't respect men that chase them. And it's not because they don't respect men that put effort in. Chasing is the aspect of pulling yourself outside of where you want to build. Inviting is different than chasing. Free lemonade, actually $5 lemonade, not free lemonade, never say that word. $5 lemonade, you interested? Right? And she goes, oh, would love some, right? But that's my stand. That's where I stand, right? And that's in relationship to men and values. It's a great conversation to have. The reason why I say that, people are going to take whatever they like. Now they're like, dude, life coach told me to have sex on the first night. Yeah, let's rationalize, right? I'm doing God's work. It's like, hey, you're not doing God's work. You're a piece of shit. You found somebody to rationalize things that you don't want to investigate. And the real point of that question is that people begin to investigate it. Presence is something that we all have. And I believe that people often are afraid of the act of sex itself. And I think that there's a lot of qualifying prior to that. But ultimately, a lot of the time, people don't trust themselves. And they definitely don't trust themselves with others. And I was told this by a woman the other day, which was, I wanted to sleep with him the first day I met him. I didn't, and I made him chase. Now ask the guy the same story. He's going to tell you he didn't want to. You see the disconnect there is that it's often within the bubble of somebody's ego. But the honest expression could be, oh, like dogs right now, right? That's a hard thing to love about somebody, because how do you know they wouldn't do that with somebody else?
Well, yeah.
So maybe he's vulnerable.
Okay, but here's the thing. You said that you want a woman who has some righteousness and virtue, I'm assuming. But so are you okay with a woman that has slept with 30 guys before you?
Well,
or would you rather have a woman that has preserved herself and saved that as a gift for her husband?
But here's the thing. Women need to be aware of their nature that made them sleep with 30 guys.
Right.
It's not a good thing on your track record to say, I've had 30 guys, none of them wanted to be with me, right? Now it's also...
But is it okay for a man to have 30 girls?
I don't even play that game, because it's like, I deal with so many intimacy disorders around promiscuity. It sucks for both sexes. Men could afford it. Doesn't mean that you should do it. There's a difference.
I agree.
Women can't afford it.
Right.
Okay?
Emotionally,
that's the
they
difference. Can't. Men could afford it. Doesn't mean you should do it.
Right. Okay.
And I think that people should be getting married young, and that it should be being taught at a younger age of what that means. And men are just going to mature later. That's just typical. But women earlier, at a younger age, should be taught what it is to be a wife and a mother, to be there for a man. And that's not an easy thing, because it's actually difficult. That's the ideal that the woman is challenged by. They're challenged by it, just like men are challenged by fatherhood and responsibility and leadership. And so going back to the whole sex thing, you know, when a woman goes, oh, I've slept with 30 guys, and then a girl goes, oh, I'm a virgin. A lot of people are not aware of this. If you just met somebody at a different point in their life, they were a virgin at one point in their life, and then actually a non-virgin at another. What you're really looking for is the human nature that they haven't confronted, that they have no control over, right?
Yeah.
Why are you using that, right? Because, you know, you can have a girl that goes, I save it for him. Well, now it's on your pace. You can control him with it.
Yeah.
Why don't you? So you see the same nature. The number is just showing you the thing about the nature that was left unintegrated. You can marry a virgin who's just a closet, right? But because that's the whole thing. But that's what I believe about every woman. Every woman has that dirty little and that's appropriate for women to understand about themselves. And I think that it's naive to think that men are like, oh, she's my wife because she rejected me about sex. Well, that's a projection. That's because you were told that the woman that does that is your wife. So you see how it's dishonest? I'm more about honesty than anything else. And look, you take people in the 21st century, you know, and what they do with the people they love is they give them less than the people they don't respect. A majority of women nowadays guys they don't care about. And for the guys that they care about, they take your advice. Not saying that your advice is a problem, but they go, he can chase me. Oh, wait. So you meet your dark needs with strangers you don't give a about. And with men that you could bring home for Thanksgiving, you hide. You're not going to be happily married. You're going to be living such a dishonest life, and you're going to be telling yourself, I met my husband. No, you just have everybody's approval because you've always lived off of what other people think about you, not what you think about yourself. And you're probably more manipulative than you ever thought you were. That's women's darkness right there.
Yeah.
They know how to plant seeds to get you to think about how they want you to see them, not who they are. So the whole thing about having sex on the first date, to answer it, you just got to meet yourself where you're at. And ultimately, anybody who's emotionally integrated is going to have to bear the consequences of that.
Yeah.
You know, we live in a world of, oh, I'm on birth control, I could people. If you weren't,
I know,
you would bear the weight of that.
Okay.
Right? Especially if you connect to fatherhood and motherhood, which is why it's great to ask those questions. How do you want to raise your kids?
Yes.
It's the greatest question you could ever ask on a date. Because you'll either get, what, kids, me, you? Oh, right, boom, he's already out the picture.
Yeah.
You'll also see how irresponsible he is. And then even the best part, you'll get to see how much he wants to invite you towards that. Right? Because it's not just you, it's the responsibility of having you.
Right.
And that's romantic.
Absolutely. Well, and just so everybody knows, I stand for, and I would still say, do not sleep with anybody on the first date.
Okay,
you got to get to know him. You got to get to know him.
It depends who you're with.
Okay.
You got to get
Especially
to
for
know
women.
him. How about that? You got to get to know him. I
Yes.
think that's the most important thing.
Yes.
Don't confuse time for information.
Right, but if you
Men will lie to
introduce
you.
sex too soon, then that's all you want to do. There's no more conversation. There's no more getting to know each other. It's just sexual intimacy,
I like
but
that.
not
That's a good
real
point.
intimacy, I think.
If you do introduce it, it's a variable that you're going to have to juggle within the midst of other things that you need to juggle.
Yes,
But most people
yes.
do not ask people their value systems. They don't ask how they want to raise their children. They don't ask when they want to get married and how they want to build their life and what role do they want to embody.
That's
if
the
they
most
ask
important
those
thing.
things and it so happened to be the first date,
and
you, by the way, intuitively, you would be able to go, no, that person is not full of shit. How do you know? What's their relationship with their parents?
Yeah.
Another great question.
I was just going to say.
And then another one, your past boyfriends.
Yeah.
If you had any. And then also your siblings.
Yeah. But
and
are
like,
they,
holy shit,
how do you
she's
know
a
they're going
good
to tell
girl.
the truth? I mean, everybody's on their best behavior.
That's my whole point. Even after date 5, people will be on their best behavior until they show you their face. You need to be somebody of individuality, somebody who understands themselves very deeply to be able to go, oh, you delude yourself every day. How do you know? Because I tell myself the truth and I tell others the truth.
Yeah.
That's how you could spot a at a mile away.
That's good. That's good.
I mean, look, at this point in my life, if I had to reflect back on having sex on the first date, be open to that being a possibility that you may need to take courage to do if this is part of your authentic expression with people you don't respect. You need to be honest about sexual expression. You know, men are like, I used to do this all the time. Meet a girl I really like, and then the little ape gorilla would go in the shadows and be like, I'm not here, right? And I would present this wonderful, charismatic, psychological, philosophical genius, but all my vulnerability was in the sex monkey that I hid. Right? So I would think I was vulnerable. No, I was the most performative, manipulative because all I needed to do was say, hey, I want to eat you out in the bathroom. That's a difficult thing to say, and a lot of men don't understand that. That's a vulnerable expression. And now it sounds like kind of porny, but you know, it's a deep need, and actually that's where most men meet their needs with women. If men cannot meet their needs sexually with a woman, they will not feel seen, they will not feel understood, and they will cheat. And that's what I make very clear about men. The more you are aware of your nature and your dark nature, you'll present it to women and you'll have a long-lasting marriage. And the number one, by the way, factor for long-lasting relationships is sexual compatibility.
Yeah, I think
and
that's
then values
big.
come second.
Okay, but I believe that, two people that come together that don't have a lot of experience in sex, and as in our Christian community, we...
Well, if you're young, then they're under protection of authority.
Yes.
But if we're talking to adults, you gotta let them know that they're adults.
Yes, but so you come together, you get married, let's say you're in your 20s or whatever, and you haven't had a lot of experience, you teach each other, because I hear that all the time. Well, you gotta take them for a test drive. You gotta see if you're compatible sexual.
That's psychotic. You gotta take them for a test drive.
Yes.
Implying that if you don't like the car after, you dip them, right?
Right.
So that's the problem what I'm talking about here, is that no, you like the car. That's the beauty of sexual conversation.
Yeah.
It doesn't exactly mean that you need to sleep with them.
Right.
Being able to talk about sex freely and
Yes.
not just talk about, I like sex 6
right.
times a day. That's surface level. No, you need to know how you like it. What's the language?
Right. But two young people that haven't had, let's say they're both virgins, they don't know what they like. They're new, and I think it's beautiful to be able to learn each other as you grow
how much porn
into
he
it.
watched.
I know there's probably that.
And
yes,
typically women
I'm sure.
are exceptionally naive in relationships.
That's not real sex. That's
It's not.
performance. That's a movie. That's not real.
But
it's
it
pretend.
Keeps,
It doesn't happen that way. It doesn't look like that, which is sad because most boys go into it thinking that's the wife is going to be acting like that. No, she's not. And it wrecks them. This is the image they have. That's how women should be in bed, and they're not because they're not porn stars, and then they're dissatisfied.
Well, that's the whole thing. A lot of women, and that's the thing about porn that's definitely devastating for young men. And even again, you guys raised people Christian in religious Orthodox society. It's very similar. Jewish Orthodox is very similar. That at a young age you get married. But I found it very interesting that often when they got older, there was promiscuity and infidelity across all of their relationships. And now, of course, because what you're presenting is a form of protection. And I agree with you. But we have to start understanding what exactly does marriage protect itself.
Right.
Because if people are not actually understanding that marriage is there to protect the integrity of sex, then what the hell is it really protecting?
Yeah.
It's for the children and sex itself, which are the thing that a lot of people are disconnected from.
Right.
And
I agree.
there's a lot of altruism behind this. A lot of altruism. I want to get married young. And it's like, are you ready, young man? Like, you don't know who you are.
Right.
You've never even seen it. And that's why I kind of understand the, quote, more liberal perspective on these things. Is that, like, when you grow up, you're like, that was lying to itself on clockwork.
Yeah.
Which is why I do believe that the fundamental, if there are people who are both coming in that space without any experience, then they will integrate themselves with each other. The values are what's going to bring them together. And I do believe that everybody does need to have a relationship with their body. Your body and relationship to sex are going to tell you a lot about your ability to play. It's the tool by which you express yourself with. And so that would be a really good indicator for people who are trying to get married young. If a woman hates her body, holy good luck.
It's not going to be good. Yeah.
It's not going to be good.
Not going to be
and
good
the same
for him.
thing, and the same thing goes for men. It's in relationship to expressing that aspect of themselves without feeling shame. And look, there's beliefs that can already give people sexual trauma.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so that's what I'm saying. But at the end of the day, the way that this really works is by raising people with a strong system of values.
Yes.
Those values are going to be the only values that have actually stood the test of time, biblical ones. And those ones people need to read for themselves. And if they don't, they will find themselves further and further away from the ideal because they will never know what it is. And they will be wrestling with their human nature and they will be criticizing it and ripping it apart when it is the bridge to God.
Yeah, I agree. I had an 18-year-old boy ask me at a church service, my husband and I were speaking, and we took question and answers at the end, and he said, how will I know when I'm ready for a relationship? And I looked at him and I said, well, do you know where you're going in life? Do you know what your purpose is? He said, I'm not sure yet. I said, okay. I said, can you support a woman right now financially? No. Do you know what you want to do? Like, I just started asking him questions. I said, you're not ready. And because he couldn't answer any of the questions. And I said, and it's okay. You're 18. It's okay not to be ready. Like, first, you need to grow. You need to develop yourself and find out who you are. I mean, your brain's not even completely developed till you're like 24, 28, something like that. And it's like, take your time, and you can have girlfriends along the way, but get to know who you are first, because what do you have to offer?
That's the whole thing about men. They get your girlfriends along the way, and with girls, stay in your cage.
Yeah.
So I could see how it's about giving them the deeper understanding of themselves, and at the end of the day, I do believe that people should be getting married young, because if you look at what's worse, look at what's happening
I
now,
know.
okay?
I know.
So at the end of the day, if people did understand, It's just there's so many fantasies that are left in front of people's faces.
Yeah.
You don't need to show up to anything. You don't need to grow anything.
Right.
And that's really tragic. You don't have to.
It is.
And it keeps you old, and you grow old faster than you know, and then it becomes too late.
Yeah.
I wish people understood that sometimes.
I know 60 and 70-year-old single women, some that never got married, never had children, and they said, you know what, I did it wrong. They said, I drank the Kool-Aid of the feminist movement. I believed that marriage was a cop-out. I didn't need a man. I can do it myself. And this one woman said, I was successful. I make a lot of money. Now I'm 70, and I have no one to share my life with. I have no one to share my life with.
What a tragedy.
Isn't that tragic? Beautiful woman, successful, money, but no one to go to travel with.
That's why I have a lot of contempt and hatred towards the organizations that condition people and tell lies to women. They're lies. They're lies. And I want women to know that you're being lied to. And when you realize that you become a product of conditioning, and then you look for the scraps of yourself that are so scattered throughout your life, give me a call. Because you're going to need it.
Right.
And and it's going to be a man that tells you.
Yeah.
And that's what women hate. It's going to be a man that tells you. And the reason why I'm saying that is because you won't listen to anything else. That's not one.
Yeah.
That's why I address God as he.
Yeah. That's good.
Not the men don't listen, women don't listen, right?
Yeah.
Which is probably why you get a lot of pushback.
Yeah.
You probably have to pull yourself out of your authentic energy, which is being feminine, which is, something for you to consider, just like.
No, I have a friend going through a divorce right now. She wants the divorce. We married them 20 years ago, and she was telling a friend of ours, I'm getting a divorce, and the other friend said, what happened? She said, you had great training, meaning I trained her, and I thought to myself, she doesn't listen to me. Like, we're friends, she's been in my life for a long time, but I know she has never listened, or she wouldn't be going through a divorce right now. And you're right, but women don't listen, especially to women.
Yeah, you especially to women, because the contention that women have towards each other is like, men should wake up to that, to realize that, like, women know what they are.
Yeah.
Men are like, oh, she's gorgeous. They're blinded by beauty. And it's not that you need to blind yourself like Samson did in this regard. You just need to accept that that's going to be a factor in your life. You're going to feel noise. And if you know there's noise, then you can be more patient. And that's what's very important in relationship to dating, a level of patience.
Yeah, yeah.
And you could feel the person out. But if you want to get married young, you need to get good at confronting others, challenging each other, and being willing to go, oh, I need some work to do.
Yeah.
If you can't do those three things, what are you doing?
Yeah, that's so good. I so appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you so much.
I think you are so intelligent. You blow my mind. I feel like I have a hard time keeping up with you.
No, I told you, you gave me so much room to play. I wanted to let you know that. I was so excited when I got here. Your questions were so good. You are so curious. You love so deeply. And I think beautiful things are growing with that. So thank you so much.
Well,
even if I got a little fast, I'll slow down.
Well, no, and we have to keep in touch. I can't wait to see what woman you pick one of these days.
I'm ready for the expectations.
I want to watch.
The expectations are going to slaughter me because it won't please everybody.
Yeah, no, it's going to be great. But I'm so thankful to have met you, and keep doing the work that you're doing.
Thank you so much.
You're making a huge impact and a really big difference.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Okay.